Welcome to the Unit 4 test review on graphing lines. Rate of change, slope, we'll be covering all of that. Let's get right into it. There's a lot of problems. So calculate the slope of each line. So for the first one, we just need to pick 2 points on the line. And then look at what the slope is. And remember, slope is rise over run, or if we want to get more fancy, delta y, or change in y over change in x. And so when we look at this, what we see is that we go down 1, 2, and we run 1, 2, 3. And so the slope is negative 2 over 3. On this one, if we pick 2 points, the rise between those 2 points is 0, and the run is 6, so the slope is 0. Here, we pick 2 points. I'll pick this point, and I'll pick this point. It doesn't matter what 2 points on the line we pick, the slope will always be the same. Here I get a rise of 6 and a run of 2, so my slope is 3. And on this last one, if I pick 2 points, once again, doesn't matter what 2 points I pick, I get a rise of 5, but a run of 0. Now we can't divide by 0. You can try. If you don't believe me, ask Siri what 0 divided by 0 is. So the slope of this is undefined. So horizontal lines have a slope of 0, where vertical lines, the slope is undefined. Calculate the slope of the line passing through 2 points. And so what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to use this equation, which is how you calculate slope given 2 points. And so what I always want to do, is a good habit to get into, is label your points. X, Y, X, Y. So this is x1 and y1, this is x2 and y2. And then we just plug into the formula that we have down here. And I will get 10 minus 5 over 7 minus 3. And so I get a slope of 5/4. For this next one, once again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So I would get slope is 7 minus 7 over 8 minus 4, which gives me a slope of 0 over 4, which is 0. x1, y1, x2, y2. Negative 1 minus 2 over 2 minus negative 3. And so that gives me negative 3 over 5. And for this last one, x1, y1, x2, y2. So that means I get 3 minus negative 3 over 8 minus 8. So my slope is 6 over 0, which is undefined. So that was finding the slope of a line. Next, we need to find the slope and y-intercept. So remember that you have y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So for this first one, this is very easy. That's the slope. I guess I should have done that in green. And that's the y-intercept. Now, for B, it's a little bit trickier because it's not solved for y. You notice in your equation, it says y equals. So if we can get this equation so it says y equals, then we'll be in good shape. So if we add x to both sides, you get 4y equals x plus 8. Then we would divide both sides by 4, and you'd get y equals 1/4 x plus 2. So the slope is 1/4, and the y-intercept is 2. So I'm just going to erase that so it's not confusing. For the next one, same thing. An algebra trick is you move stuff to the other side, and so you get 10y equals -5x, because when you move a term from one side of the equal sign to the other, it becomes the opposite. And then we divide both sides by 10. And I will get y equals -1/2 x plus 2. And so my slope is -1/2. My y-intercept is 2. Use my algebra trick again here. If I move a term from one side of the equal sign to the other, or it becomes the opposite. If that's confusing, you can also just subtract x from both sides, 7x, sorry, and you'll get y equals -7x plus 5. And so I get a slope of -7 and a y-intercept of 5. And for this last one, I need to divide everything through by -3. Remember, the number implied in front of x, is 1. And I'll get y equals -1/3 x minus 1. So my slope is -1/3. My y-intercept is -1. Okay. So now we're doing the same thing as before, but they're asking us to graph them. And there's a whole series of these. We'll do them 3 at a time. This one's easy. The slope is 3/5. The y-intercept is 2. So remember, y-intercept is a place. The y-intercept is at 2. Then slope is a pattern that repeats. So rise over run. We would rise 1, 2, 3, and run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But remember, it goes, it's a pattern. So the pattern goes in both directions. And then what we can do is draw our line in. And then, of course, we always put the arrows on the end of our lines because that line extends forever. And for the second one, well, now it's confusing because it's not, remember, the number implied in front of x is -1, but there's nothing on the end. So what's the y-intercept? Well, it's +0. And the slope is -1. Now, how do we write that as a fraction? Well, if you have a whole number, you just write it over 1. Remember to double check yourself. Lines with positive slopes go up. Lines with negative slopes go down. So this equation had a positive slope. The line went up. This equation had a negative slope. The line went down. All right, for this last one, a lot of people are going to make the mistake of saying the slope is -4. That's incorrect. If you think about it, it's y equals mx plus b. M is the number in front of the x. And what you will notice here is there is no x. So the slope is 0. The y-intercept is -4. Whenever you have y equals, you're going to get a horizontal line, which is very different than, say, E here. I'm going to skip to that, because here the slope is undefined. And there really isn't a y-intercept, and all this is a vertical line through 5. Sorry, that didn't go quite straight. All right, coming back in order. So here the slope is -3, the y-intercept is 0. So we write that as -3/1. Now, a common people say is that, like, okay, does the 3 go on the top or the bottom? And the answer is it can go on either, but it cannot go on both, because -3 divided by -1 equals +3. And we said the slope of the line was -3. So I can either go down 3 and over 1, or I can go up 3 and back 1. There's our line. Ooh, a little bit off there at the end when I let go. There we go. All right, for this one, for f, our slope is -2/3 and our y-intercept is -1. So once again, we can either go down 1 and over 3, or up 2 and back 3. But once again, remembering that lines with negative slopes go down. Oops, sorry, wrong button. Okay, so here's where it gets a little tricky. Once again, this equation here is not ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve it for y. And you could, later on in this packet, they have you solve this by finding the x and y intercepts. And we could do that here, except for this problem specifically asked for the y-intercept. So we can do one of two things. We can either solve it for y and get y equals -3/4 x plus 3. So my y-intercept is 3, down 3 over 4. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Down 3 over 4. Once again, slope is a pattern that repeats. And we draw our line in. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my slope -3. Yikes. -3/4. 3. Now you could have done this by finding the x and y intercepts, and we'll do that later. You would have found this point and this point, and then you would have had your y-intercept, and you could have looked at the graph and calculated the slope. Same thing is true for h. H is, we would write this as -2x minus 3y equals 6, or -3y equals 2x plus 6, as we add 2x to both sides. Then we divide both sides by -3, and I get y equals -2/3 x minus 2. So my slope is -2/3. My y-intercept is -2. And then we draw our line in. And we'll do a big fat red line. I was doing the big line to be silly. All right, now for I, you may not have been taught this by your teacher, but this is actually written in what's known as point slope form. So for people who were taught this, we know it goes through the point 1, -1, 3. And so I know that that point's going to be on the line, and I know the slope is -1. And so I could do it like that. And then I would draw my line in. The other way I could do this is I could distribute the negative. Right here, distribute the negative, and then add 3 to both sides, and I get y equals negative x plus 2. In which case means we start at 2, and then you'll notice we get the exact same pattern. And so both of those methods are correct. And then we just draw little arrows, and we're done. All right, for these, I broke these into 3 pieces because they're multi-part problems, so we're going to do them. The first step was to graph the linear inequality. So I know my slope is negative 4/5, and I know my y-intercept is 3. So I'm going to go down 4 and over 5. I can go up 4 and back 5. Now, this is going to be a solid line. I'm going to have to just, like that. But this was not, didn't say equal, it said less than or equal to. So it is, y is smaller. So I'm going to shade down. Oops, I want this one. So anything in this area is going to be a solution. And actually, I'm going to change this. Hold on. Let me draw that a different way. Let me use a different color so we can do something like this here. Cheat. So anything in this yellow region and the line is part of the solution. And so the equation asks, okay, are these points part of the solution? So anything that's on the line or in the shaded region is part of the solution. So negative 3, 3 is right there. That is, so it said circle it. Now I'm going to put check marks as well. 0, 3. Well, 0, 3 is on the line. And because it's a solid line, that is part of the solution. 3, 3 is there. That is not in the shaded region, nor is it on the line, so that is not part of the solution. And then 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is, and so that gets circled. For this next one, we know the slope is 1, the y-intercept is 2, so that's easy. I'm just gonna graph it. However, this does not say y equals. It's not y is greater than or equal, it's just y is greater than. So we do not draw a solid line in this case, we draw a dotted line. And then we are going to shade above because y is greater than. So then it asked us, are these points part of the solution? Let's graph them. Negative 4, 4 is right there. Yeah, that's part of the solution. Negative 1, 1. Well, that's on the line. But the line is dotted, so the line is not part of the solution. So that is not part of it. 0, 3 is right there. That's in the shaded region. 0, 0 is not in the shaded region, so that's no good. Graph each linear equality and identify. Okay, so once again, slope is negative 1/2, y-intercept is 3. So remember, slope is a pattern that repeats on a line. and we have y is greater than or equal to, so we get a solid line. Y is greater than, so you're going to shade above. So now we have to check if these points are here. Now, 10, negative 10 is going to be over here somewhere. So we'll come back to that one. Let's do 6, 0. Well, 6, 0 is right there. That is on the line. Because it's greater than or equal to, the line is part of the solution. So that's okay. 0, 6 is right there. So that's part of the solution. So we're okay. 10, 10, I can't find it. Because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is over there. But I know it's going to be up here somewhere. So I know that's part of the solution. So how do I check this if it's not on the graph? Well, remember, this is saying that all values, so let's take this point here, 10, 10. That's the one I need to check. So that means that 10 has to be greater than or equal to negative 1/2 times 10 plus 3. Because the solution is all points that make this original statement true. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. Oops, sorry. It was 10, 10. I circled the wrong thing here. My apologies. That was correct. That was the one we just did. So we need to do 10, negative 10. That's the one we haven't checked. So as we said, 10, 10 was up here. So that's good. 0, 6, and 6, 0, okay. Question is 10, negative 10, which is going to be down here somewhere. Now, it doesn't look like it's going to be part of the solution, but we can double check that. So negative 10 has to, in order for this point to be true, has to be greater than that. And so is negative 10 greater than or equal to negative 5 plus 3? Well, the question is negative 10 greater than or equal to negative 2? And that is not true. So that is not part of the solution. Okay. For this one, they say, here's our line. And then identify with a circle each equation that represents the graph. So y, let's do the first one, y equals x plus 3. Well, that would be a line like that, because it'd be a positive slope. So that does not. On the other hand, for b, yeah, that looks good. Now, c is not in the right form. So I need to move the x to the other side, and I'll get y equals negative x plus 3. Well, that's this, which I already circled, so that has to be correct. This one, when I move x to the other side, I get x plus 3. That's the same as the first one, so that's wrong. Here, on this one right here, I would move x's to the other side or subtract 2x from both sides, whichever way you want to think about it. And I get 2y equals negative 2x plus 6. And we divide everything through by 2, and we get y equals negative x plus 3. Once again, that's the same as this, so we'd circle that one. Y equals 3x would be a line that looked like that. So that's out. This last one is in point slope form. And so it's saying, hey, there's a line that goes through the point 2, 1. It has a slope of negative 1. So 2, 1, and a slope of negative 1. Well, that's that line as well. So that's that. And if you don't know point slope form, you could do the same thing by distributing the negative and then solving it for y, and I'd get negative x plus 3, which is once again our right answer. Okay. For this one, you just got to graph them and match them. So I'm just going to give you the answers. And I can explain a few of these, like for h, you know that's going to be a horizontal line, sorry, a vertical line. And so there it is, h equals 2. For f, y equals x, so that's a slope of 1 going through the origin. So sure enough, right there. Pick another one at random, y equals 2x. Slope of 2 going through the origin. And so if you double check, these will all work out. All right, getting close to the end here. So for these, find graph each one by finding the intercepts. So how you do that is you plug in either 0 for x and y. So if I do negative 6x plus 3 times 0 equals negative 12. And so that's negative 6x equals negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 6. And I get x equals 2. So that means the point 2, 0 is on the graph. Then I can plug in 0 for x and solve for y. And I get y equals negative 4. That means the point 0, negative 4 is on the graph. Because remember, a graph is just explaining the relationship between x and y. So if I know what x is, I can figure out what y is. If I know what y is, I can figure out what x is. And then I would just plot these 2 points. 2, 0, 0, negative 4. Now I have my 2 points that I need to draw my line. Repeat the process. So I'll plug in 0 for y. And I'll get x equals 4. So x is 4 and y is 0. Repeat the process here. 2 times 0 equals 4, minus 4y equals 8. Or negative 4y equals 8. Divide both sides by negative 4. And I'll get y equals negative 2. So that means I go through the point 0, negative 2. So 4, 0. Oh, I made a mistake here, guys. I apologize. On this last problem, we'll go back and fix that in a second. I made the same mistake twice. So I got this, 4, 0, 0, negative 2. I get a line like that. For this one, the points were 2, 0, 0, negative 4. Sorry I made that mistake. So you get that. Now, if you had solved each one of these for y's, you would get the y-intercept and the x-intercept, the y-intercept and the slope, but you'd wind up with the same lines. All right, for this last one, this is just doing what the process we just did, and you do it for each line. And so I'm just going to go ahead and write in the answers. This is N, S, P, T, O, R, W, Y, U, X, Z, B. And I'll tell you what, I'll do this last one just to show you that it's working. So it says plug in, if I plug in 0 for x, then I have to solve this equation. So I add 3 to both sides, and I get 3 equals 2y, divide both sides by 2, and I get y equals 1.5. That means that when I plugged in 0 for x, I got 1.5. And I would do the exact same thing as I would plug in 0 for y, and I'd get x equals negative 3, which means it goes to the point negative 3, 0. Remember, x, y, x, y. And sure enough, that's V. All right. If you understand and make sure you know how all these problems work, you should do very well on the next test. Good luck to everybody. If you have any questions, make sure you bring them to your next class before the test.